There we go. So today I would like to talk with you about a positive culture and how you can develop a more positive culture in your team or organization with interaction interventions. So I'm going to start to tell you about some middle managers that I worked with, a team. And they really triggered me to write the Positive Culture book and to launch the Positive Culture Academy, because I've been working for, I think, over 10 years specifically on culture change. And I was working with this team of middle managers. And while we were doing this session, they were working in a large corporation, and I worked with their top executives as well. And then they told me, well, you know, Marcella, you're really wasting your time today with us because there is nothing we can change in this organization. We cannot change the culture. So, you know, it's really, we don't have any possibilities. So it's a waste of time, and we cannot even change the culture in our teams because people are simply not listening to us and they don't want to do anything, so nothing goes over here. So, you know, it's not possible, and culture is so lofty, and, you know, it's about everything, it's elusive, so we cannot change this corporation's culture, let alone our teams. And, you know, that really struck me because they were so discouraged and exhausted and depleted. And I thought, well, you know, they have a leading position. So if even managers can feel this way and can feel so strongly that they are powerless, you know, it's no wonder that employees are disengaged at work, because, you know, we've all seen these infamous Gallup survey outcomes. And that's a shame, really. I mean, it's terrible if you simply go through the motions at work simply to pay the bills. So there are possibilities, and I should help them retrieve their personal positive power, their positivity, and I should make it easier for them to work on their culture, even easier than, you know, what I was doing back then, using a simple culture survey and looking at the values and the daily behaviors. So how could I help them you know, change their culture, make it more positive so that they could see possibilities again and, well, get things going, even if they were busy and, you know, they didn't have time for anything. So that really started my developing the interaction interventions, finding really simple ways, start small, go viral, to change your organization's culture. And, you know, that's when I wrote the book, the Positive Culture book. You can see the blue cover that Kim already showed us, Developing a Positive Culture Where People and Performance Thrive. And, you know, it has 4 parts. So the first part is really what is culture, what is a positive culture, and why does it matter? So why would you even work with culture? And then the part 2 is about the personal preparation. So who should change first? And the answer is, well, we should start with ourselves to be the change we want to see on the team. So, you know, how could you prepare yourself to start influencing the others at work, to develop a more positive culture? And then part 3 is focusing on the interaction interventions. And those are things, really simple things that you can do on a daily basis to influence your team or organization. So you can start small and hopefully go viral. And then part 4 is if you want to engage your whole organization in more of like a whole system approach, you can use change circles to start changing the culture. And then based on the book, I created a Positive Culture Academy, and that's an online academy where we're going to see how you can customize the tools and techniques and tips from the book to apply it in your specific situation so that it fits you personally and your team. So that's a bit about me, but enough about me, because I would like to know a little bit about you. So what about you? If you look at the current culture in your organization, I would like to know, on a scale of 1 to 10, how positive is your current culture at work? And if you are a self-employed trainer or coach or consultant, how's the culture of your current or most recent client organization? So, how would you score that? I'm just curious. Where are you at currently?
So 10 is the best, right?
Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
For me, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
Well, that's culture, taking things for granted. 10 is an absolute positive culture, the best ever. And I would say a 1 is a really toxic culture. So it would be great if people could let us know in the chat box. And let's hear some grades.
So we have 4, 9, 5s, 7s.
Okay.
Someone had a 1 at one point.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So really, most are in the range from 4 to 8.
Okay. So, okay. So most people are not working with a toxic client or working in a really toxic culture. But, if you have a 4 or 5, you could do way better, of course. And, if you have an 8 or a 9, I mean, that's absolutely great. My first job was in a temporary project organization. And I would give that a 9 because, we had so many challenges, but we also supported one another. It was really work hard, play hard. I described this project in the book as well. And it was really fun. And then, I got, they gave me another position after this project ended. And then, I would give the next position I had a 4. Because I had to wait for permission. I didn't have my professional autonomy, so they were checking everything I did, and it really took the energy away. So that gives you an idea of well, what it could be like. And luckily I never worked in a toxic one organization.
Marcella.
There's room for improvement. Yes.
Marcella, one person said that theirs is a 3, but the readiness for change is mounting.
Oh, okay, well, that's good. Sometimes, if you drop to a 3, then you are willing to change, and that's great. So you can use that momentum. So let's take a look. Because, why would we even care about a positive culture? Because, some people said to me, well, it's a bit of a luxury. It's not happy hour. Come on, we're here to work. We need to make money and, get over it. But it's not just simply a happy, hippie, bunny thing to have a positive culture, because both research and practice show that people in performance thrive if you create this positive culture. So let's take a quick look at this because we don't have time for all the research. But, there's Kim Cameron from the University of Michigan and the Center for Positive Organizations. And he's been doing research on this topic for decades. And he found that a positive culture really leads to positive deviance, which is another word for high performance. And, in a normal culture, and we've all been, most of us have been trained and raised this way, that, if there is a problem and problems stand out, so you notice the problem, you want to fix it or bypass it and then go back to normal, business as usual. And, our clients are satisfied again, and that's it. While if you have a positive culture, you're consciously looking for what is working well and ways to strengthen that. So how could you amplify what is working well? What else is possible? So you're looking for positive potential that you could further develop. You could become your best possible self. And if you look at the team, how could the team go the extra mile, go even further without going toward a burnout and exhaustion, so in a sustainable way. So in a positive culture, it is a challenge, and it's easier, and it can be even fun to go beyond normal to positive deviance, and that's sustainable high performance. So that's why a positive culture is not simply a luxury, because it makes people thrive, and when people thrive, then performance and profits will follow soon. And that aligns with all the positive psychology research. And of course, we have Barbara Fredrickson, who is a great instigator of this field. And she found that positivity broadens and builds your organization. So, when do you do your best work? It's probably when you feel good. So when you can use your skills, you have your professional autonomy, so you have some choices. You can decide, what you can do in the morning. You can decide what else you can do in the afternoon. So there's nobody micromanaging you, telling you how to do it, but simply what to do. And, you have supportive colleagues. You probably have a few challenges, so you can learn and develop yourself, and you feel good, and you start to be more creative, more resourceful, and you get into this positive spiral. So it broadens and builds. And the other way around happens in a toxic culture, of course. When you get lots of negative feedback and you don't feel competent, and you are being micromanaged, and you start to feel insecure, you start to close off, you start to stop sharing what your objections could be, or your doubts, and you get into this negative spiral where it's really hard to achieve positive deviance. And of course, there's older research by John Cotter and James Heskett, and they found that in organizations that are alike, the difference that makes a difference is organizational culture, and it impacts performance by 20 to 30%. So that is really interesting. So it's not just feeling good, it also leads to great results. So that's the why of positive culture.
Marcella, we have a participant by the name of Hugh Evans.
Yeah.
Who says, in his experience, it varies across the organization as there are multiple cultures within any organization above a certain size. The unit has been 50 and above. People naturally segment. Do you have any comments to that?
Sorry?
Do you have any comments to Hugh's chat comment?
So that there is different cultures within an organization, depending on the teams and the leaders and the fields they're in. So is that what you were saying?
Hugh, I've unmuted you. Did you want to join the conversation?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was saying that the notion of a sort of broad homogeneous culture across most large organizations is untrue, really, and that you get departmental cultures, you get functional cultures, you get geographical cultures, and so it's a rich tapestry is the point I was making. And obviously you might have an overview. Is this organization a toxic place or a not toxic place? But my current experience is that there are parts of the organization that are very happy and ticking along nicely, and there are other parts that are really, really frustrated, and it's not a good and easy place to work. Yeah. So it varies.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. Of course, there are, it's a tapestry, and there are subcultures, or whatever you want to call it. So it depends on the members in a team. It depends on the field, on the leader, on the local leader, the location, etc. So that's absolutely right. So there might be positive patches, as I call them. So there are some teams and some people in an organization that are doing really well, and you might find that people want to work with them because, and they feel uplifted after they've had a conversation or collaborated with them. And the thing is, in consulting work or in an organization is to infect in a positive way, in a viral way, the others in the organization with, the positive teams. So how could you help the others to be more positive as well? And I'd like to continue the slideshow so we can take a look at what a positive culture, what does it mean? So, and then, we can get back to how you could invite the others to apply more positive techniques as well. So here are the ingredients of a positive culture. And thanks for adding that, by the way, because it's really important to positive also. You know, I was talking about the happy hour, but another myth about positive is that you always have to be positive. And, you know, you might, you should always smile. And that's not what a positive culture is. A positive culture is really focused on positive awareness. So it's a positive mindset that is looking for positive potential and possibilities that are not being used to date so that you could further develop them. It's looking at what is going well and finding ways to amplify that. It is looking for the positive teams, those positive patches in your organization that can help the others be more positive as well. But you know, if you have a bad temper, please have a bad temper. Be authentic at work. So positive really refers to what is uplifting, what is energizing, what is already working well. So it's the positive mindset. The second ingredient that all positive cultures have is connection and collaboration. So people know, like, and trust one another. Ideally, they are really connected, they have positive communication, they like to collaborate, they support one another, so you're not alone, so you fit into a team. And then the third ingredient is a shared meaningful purpose. So what is not really motivating is, you know, making more money for shareholders, but a really meaningful purpose. So that is answering the why question. Why are we here as a team or an organization? How and which value, what value exactly are we adding to the world, to our clients? How are we making their lives easier with our products and services? And so on. So it's a really meaningful purpose. That's why you want to get up in the morning and what that we share. And then the fourth ingredient that all positive cultures have, you know, and I've compared a lot of research for my book, is learning and autonomy. So it's my professional autonomy, so I can do my work in, you know, the way I like it. I can make decisions, I have some choices, I have space. And it also includes learning. So I am being challenged. I can share my mistakes with others, or, you know, I can try new things. I can experiment. I can share my vulnerabilities and my hopes with you. That's referring to connection and collaboration, of course. And this is what people really want. And it also aligns with the book by Daniel Pink, who says that we need mastery, autonomy, and purpose at work. And the mastery is getting better, learning, the purpose, and the autonomy to do things in our own special way. And then we add some extra connection, some support from our colleagues, and the positive mindset to that. So that is really what is a positive culture. And you know, there are 1,000 ways to have a positive culture, and each subculture, department, or location can have their own flavor. But these are the ingredients that we often see. I also want to, yes.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So Hugh asked a follow-up question, and he said, what is your thought on pessimism versus optimism and how this plays out in workplace cultures?
Well, it plays out big time. Of course, it makes a difference. And I dedicated some paragraph to this in my book as well, because it has to do with the positive mindset. And it's pessimism really is a habit. So we cannot, reality, you know, is a lot of information. And we always choose what we focus on. And then, you know, if you have a pessimistic thinking habit, then you tend to see the negative information from reality around you, and you make that, you generalize, so you apply that to everything. While if you have a pessimistic thinking habit, when something bad happens, an optimist tends to think, well, this happened one time, you know, it's contained, it's only one incident, and it's not forever, so I'm going to try again tomorrow. So pessimistic and optimistic thinking are really thinking habits. And of course, in a positive culture, it's easier to apply optimistic thinking. But if you have a pessimistic thinking habit, your colleagues might help you see the half full glass and focus on the positive again.
Marcella?
But there is a connection.
Marcella, one thing I have found in the workplace is that leaders are like Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
And whether they're optimistic or pessimistic, you can feel that Wi-Fi or sense it going out into the workplace. So
absolutely, yes. And a positive leadership is really important. So as I argue in my book, that both leaders and followers matter to the culture, because we create culture together. But leaders, of course, we're wired to look at leaders. So if you have a very pessimistic or negative leader who's pointing out, everything that did not work well, you might get into that negative spiral. Well, if you have a leader who says, well, we didn't do great, but, let's try again next time. And how could we focus on the things that are working well and amplify them? And what would you need to be at your best in this project? Then you get a whole different interaction pattern, and you get this positive spiral. And that is also what I want to show in this slide about what is culture, really briefly. Culture, of course, it's often experienced as elusive because it is about everything, and it's about identity and values and beliefs and all those deep, deep things that you cannot see, and that's why people think, whoa, I cannot work with culture, and it's about everything, and oh my gosh. But, really, culture is also very visible because it happens when people get together. Because people copy one another, consciously or aware or not. They coach and correct each other. So that is the way we do things around here. So you can see you have these deep identity, values, beliefs, but you can see culture in the daily behaviors, in interactions, in what people do, the way we do things around here, the things that we say to one another, our interaction patterns. And if I'm the new hire, I will look out for what is happening, and I'll copy that. And if I do it wrong, you might coach me or correct me. And that is what people and groups do because they want to fit in. So culture really shapes every interaction and action because, it represents the values, what we think is really important, the identity, who we are and why we are here. But, it's also the other way around. Culture shapes interaction, but interaction also shapes the culture. So what is the group dynamic? What is this interaction pattern? And then culture is also very visible because leaders and followers influence the culture. And we were talking about the subcultures, that you could have very positive teams in certain locations, and then in other locations, people are complaining and there's a whole different vibe and energy. And that is because it's not just the leader of a team, it's also the team members. So imagine there's one leader and 10 team members, 10 employees, those 10 do have an effect on the culture. So another thing is that, we might see organizations as top-down hierarchies where the leaders know best, and they tell the others what to do. But, if you see your modern organization with all those highly educated and skilled professionals, we could see the organization as a network. And when you see a network where people are connecting and collaborating and exchanging information and energy and ideas all the time, you can see that they influence each other through the interactions. And that in a network, change can start from any direction and go in any direction. So it doesn't have to be top down. So you could be that positive team, a very positive space, that people really want to work with. And, you might influence the others and entice them to copy that. So the thing is, if you have a great team, people want to be on that team, or they want to work with your department because everybody seems happy and energized all the time, and you're so creative, and it shows that your performance is great. So there is hope. Also, if you don't have a leading position, you can start influencing your coworkers and influence the culture in your team for starters, and then see how you can influence the rest of your organization. So interactions shape the culture.
Marcella,
Yes.
sorry, this is Quang. We have a question from Tom
Yes.
in the chat window to everyone. He posed this question. He said, what happens when you have two highly opposing cultures within the same group? One positive, creative team culture that is being overshadowed by a command and control culture.
Okay, so, but it's in the same team.
The same organization, probably.
Okay. Because, of course, this happens all the time. You might have a team that is working really well, and then you have a board of directors or another departments, that feels competitive and that wants to take control. So these things happen all the time. It could be a clash of interests, and these things play out in meetings often, or some sort of power play. Maybe the top executive team that I was telling you about, try to control and really micromanage those middle managers, and they felt powerless, like we cannot change anything over here. So the thing is to use the interaction interventions when you meet with them one-on-one or in a meeting, and to really ask the question, how could we achieve the results that we want? So how could we, for instance, increase our production? And what would be the best way? Or so start asking positive questions that are focused on positive potential, and see, they might be interested in increasing the production as well. So find a shared interest and start asking questions. How could we engage together? How could we work together to accomplish that? Or if there's really a conflict of interest, you could put that on the table and ask in a very non-provocative, accepting way, hey, I noticed this. How could we work together, or how could we see to it that both our interests are met, that there is not a conflict, and that we achieve our targets, for instance. So the thing is that you can address these issues with positive interaction interventions by asking questions, for instance, and find the shared interest so that, it makes sense for everyone to reach that positive deviance that I was talking about, that, high performance. So the interactions, they are often overlooked, like, it's so simple, but, many things that really have an impact are really simple. And the thing is, small things are easy to keep up with, even if you're busy. And that's why I developed interaction interventions, especially for those middle managers that were so overwhelmed and busy. So does a positive and productive culture require a huge change program? Well, sometimes it's not needed to, roll it out from the top down, make it large and long and wide and exhausting. But you could start small, and you could start today. So research and practice show that interactions influence your coworkers, your team, and eventually the organization. So think of this ripple effect. So you have a great team, and it stands out in the organization, and people start to look at you and go like, wow, we want to be with them, or we want to work with them, or show us what you're doing because you're having great results. So what are interaction interventions? It's really what you say, ask, or do to make the culture more positive, And that's regardless of your position, and you don't need permission or resources. So you could start developing a more positive culture in a team, even if you are only a team member. So that is really great. And that's the beauty of interaction. Everybody has interaction. So how do you want to make people feel? And if they feel good, it's more fun to work with you, and they will help you and support you more. It's also how you say, ask, or do it. So if you can be very open, calm, respectful, accepting of what is happening instead of judging, if you can be positive, then you might help the others see things differently or think again. And you can, there are different categories of interaction interventions, and we could list them as asking possibility-oriented questions, looking for positive potential. It's listening deeper and better. It is sharing ideas and energies, sharing more, sharing your own hopes, vulnerabilities, wishes as well, maybe even your mistakes. And it's responding to everything that happens in the room. So how do you respond to gossip? How to respond to manipulation, intimidation, how to respond to elephants in the room. So that is really what interaction interventions are about. And we don't have time to go through all of them, of course. They're in the book and in the academy. We'll work on it. But this is a way to develop a positive culture, one interaction at a time. And it really works. So you make a difference already to your coworkers. And you can use that and people can benefit from it if you become more aware of how you interact and how you can help the others be their best possible self at work. So your interactions matter. So that is great news. And I'd like to explore that with you. And I have 4 questions for you. And I hope you have a pen and paper, or maybe you can write it down. And I hope you have an iPhone or a smartphone with a calculator, because I have a little formula to take a look at your interaction ratio. So I'd like you to write down the answer to these 4 questions I'm going to ask you, and then we'll come back to that. So here goes. Here's the first question that I have for you, and that is, with how many people do you interact on a daily basis, on average? So, don't think too long, simply jot down a number that you think is the right number for you. Okay. And if you let's focus on in-person interaction. So not on Facebook or LinkedIn or, how many fans and followers, but real interactions face-to-face in a meeting or one-on-one. Okay. So that's the first number. It's the quantity. And then there's the second question. So on a scale of 1 to 5, what's the average quality of your interactions, judging from the energy level and the emotions? So with 1 being very negative, 2, if it's a 2, it's, it makes you feel tired or maybe cautious. 3 is energy and emotions neutral. 4 is okay. And 5 is positive. So on average, your interactions are leaving you uplifted and energized. So again, please follow your first impulse. It's not higher science, not rocket science. Okay, this is the average quality of your interactions. And then here is question number 3. On a scale of 1 to 5, about what do you interact? So this is the range of topics. So with 1 being business only and need to know. And a 2 or a 3 could be primarily about business, but it's more nice to know. So I will share more ins and outs, or I'll give you a warning in advance when I need something or there's a deadline coming up. So I know a little bit more context, why I need to do things, what's up. 4 is personal topics as well. And 5 is personal topics. So I know you as another human being with all your moods and authentic, etc. But 5 is also including learning, vulnerabilities and hopes. So it's not just about, what my hobbies are, but also, what would I really like to accomplish? What really makes me tick? And what do I have doubts about or questions? Okay, so this is the range of topics. And then here's my last question for you. And that's on a scale of 1 to 5, how regularly do you interact with the same person? So, that says something about how often I can influence them. So 1 is being once a month or less, so we don't interact much. A 2 or 3 could be every 2 to 3 weeks. A 4 is every week, steady every week. And a 5 is daily interactions or multiple times during the day. So this is the frequency. So now you've got 4 numbers, probably. And then let's take a look at your interaction score. And here's the formula that gives you an idea. I'd like you to multiply the number of people you interact with the quality. So you had a number for the quality of the interaction. So your energy and emotions and theirs. And then you multiply that with the range of topics from strictly business to everything about me personally, including my vulnerabilities. And then you multiply that complete number again with how often you interact. And then you get your interaction score. And that interaction score tells you something about how many people you influence and how positive that influence might be. So it gives you an idea, and it's nothing more than an idea. And it's really important to look at it for yourself. So if you see this number, is it high or low? And the way I set it up, the higher the number, the more people you influence and the higher the energy. So probably the higher influence, higher positivity ratio. But it's really important to not compare your numbers to somebody else's. So it's more for yourself to see if you would like to improve or change something and how this number changes over time. So what would you like to improve? Maybe the number of people you influence, the quality of the interactions, the range of topics, or the frequency. And it would be great if some of you would like to share their number.
Kimberly, you're muted.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
We have scores from 72 to 300, 900, 1500. So yeah, we have a good range.
Wow. So that's really interesting. So yeah, of course, there is a wide variety because, some people have a position where they talk with lots of people. So, if you are a coach or a trainer, or you're in front of a group or working with teams, you have the opportunity to influence lots of people with your interaction. Of course, well, if you're working as a scientist or an analyst and you're all by your desk by yourself, the first number will be lower. And so that's why it's important not to compare with others, but it gives you an idea of your interactions. So, if you want to develop a more positive culture in your organization, how could you raise your personal interaction number, your score?
Marcella, I have a comment I would like to just share.
Okay.
What I like about this equation is, for me, it's less about the score for me, but it's about making me think about my interaction with different people and different groups. I don't normally think about my interactions as having a quality interaction. I think about doing the business and then finishing up the business and saying, okay, it was nice talking to you, bye, have a great day. So
Yeah.
this process is helping me kind of think about how to slow down and create a positive or more meaningful interaction with the people that I interact with. So thank you for that.
Oh, that's great. Well, thanks for sharing that. It's wonderful that it works that way. It's the same for me. It makes me more aware of my communication, and especially when you're in a hurry, you're on autopilot, you forget to say hi and bye. You narrow the scope, it's just a business topic and then we move on. And, and of course, it's totally understandable. And we don't have to talk about your cat and my dog all the time. And, it makes a difference to connect as human beings and to be aware of that and, to take time to build the relationship and to build, liking and trusting and knowing one another. So that's exactly what happens. And another thing for me is also how often I interact. Because, sometimes, I've said it once and then I move on. But, sometimes I have to repeat it a couple times and, see them again and spend some time on it again. So that works for me as well.
Marcella?
Yeah.
Hugh says, this resonates as a measure of a deliberately developmental organization duo. And he references Keegan and Leahy's stuff and information.
Mm-hmm.
I have noticed that all the research that I've been doing lately has come out about the importance of connections. I just saw last week on 60 Minutes, they were talking about how to help people who have PTSD. And one of the key ways to help them recover is by having high quality connections.
Yeah, it's wonderful. It's so basic, but all organization is really humans working together. So it comes down to the relationship, of course. But it's also, you have the old-fashioned task people polarity. So it's about people, but you also have to have the positive deviance, so the task orientation. And that is a competing value that you have to balance. And some people are, you might have a natural preference towards people or a task. And I am very much result oriented. So I want to get things done personally. So this helps me focus on the people side as well. So that's really, well, it's helpful to me. And I love to hear this wide variety of scores. So that's great. So I'm going to ask you, do this formula, this equation again in 2 weeks' time. Or, look at this and see, which of the areas, the number of people, quality, range of topics, or the frequency would you like to improve? And then play with that for the next 2 weeks. And then, do it again and see if it has changed. Or, maybe you get different responses from the people around you. So that would be really interesting to track for yourself. Okay. So so everybody can really contribute to a more positive culture, one interaction at a time. So the more people you interact with in a positive way, the more you contribute to a positive culture. And that even goes, with your terrible boss in your specific organization with these co-workers. Of course, you'll have to find out how to do it and, maybe strengthen yourself a bit, have your courage, but eventually you can influence them big time because you work with them. And every conversation is a building block of culture. So even a one-on-one conversation is really a conversation that takes place within the context of the culture, and a one-on-one doesn't really exist, because the other people, you influence the other person, and he or she goes away and will tell the others about it, or you affected their mood, because leaders are like Wi-Fi, so they feel more positive or negative after talking with you. And even if you don't have a leading position, you influence the other. So a conversation with one eventually is a conversation with all. And we tend to overlook the importance of interactions, but it's really there. It's fascinating. And especially if you look at meetings, that's a whole different chapter. Meetings are the public spaces of culture. So everything that happens in a meeting gives you information about the interaction patterns in the organization, the group dynamics, what is really important, what is not, who gets airtime, who gets away with what. So that is really interesting. And in public, egos tend to come out. So how positive and authentic is the culture really? Is it possible to ask questions? Is it possible to be vulnerable? Is it possible to give voice to a doubt, or to talk about something that is, not easy to talk about in a meeting? So that's interesting, to take a look at the interaction patterns taking place around you. And then please remember, everybody who is present in a room is part of the culture and is contributing to the culture. So what you ignore, you tolerate. And what you tolerate becomes normal. And then remember the circle of copy, coach, and correct. What is normal gets copied. So what is the way you do things around in your team or organization? What is copied? So everybody has a responsibility here. So, I was in a meeting once where this leaders invited the first level leaders and the second level leaders. And then he was running out of time, and, we were making a round, and he was asking the first level leaders their opinion. Then he came to a second level leader and he said, "Oh, sorry, we don't have time for that. We have to move on." And there was an awkward silence, and the conversation, they went on, and, he closed the meeting, and the second level leaders were present, but were not given a voice. So this was, way back when I didn't open my mouth. And it's really important because everybody in the room has a responsibility. So what would you do in a positive culture if a leader who is on a tight schedule did this? What if the chairman, simply said to your neighbor, "Sorry, we don't have time to hear you. I just want to listen to the first level leaders." So that's interesting. What would you do? What would a positive culture do? Would you stand up for your colleague? Would you stand up for yourself? What do you ignore? What do you tolerate? And when do you do an interaction intervention? So it's time to wrap up, probably. So I'll quickly show you the core concept that we'll be working on in Positive Culture Academy based on the book. But in the Academy, we're going to look at, we're going to do it together because we need support. So you will have positive peers. And we're going to customize the tips, tools, and techniques from the book and see how you can apply that in your specific organization or team, with your team, with this boss, in this corporation, in this, marketing field or this specific location. How would it work for you so that it's natural, it's authentic, and you're not playing a role, but you're really being you as a human being, and developing this positive culture. So we'll look at culture, organizational change, positive culture, positive leadership. Then we'll look at a culture diagnosis, and we'll focus on interaction interventions that you can do, what you can do with meetings to make them more productive and positive, leadership practices if you have a leading position, and change circles to engage the whole organization.
Marcella?
Yeah? There is
so Deborah shared, based on your last question,
yeah.
He said, "Oh gosh, I was interviewing recently, and it was clear that no one in the room felt safe to communicate freely in front of the rest of the panel.
Mm-hmm.
There was so much divergence between words and body language, and everyone reading everyone else before speaking. She thought, oh, wow, I have my job cut out for me.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So this is really interesting. And, you know, in my book, I share examples about this as well. So one of the things of a positive culture is to, we aim for safety. So, you know, it's possible for everybody to speak and to be heard. So this, you know, this is really an example of an elephant in the room. So you see this gap between verbal communication and nonverbal body language. And it's, so the great thing would be to address what you are seeing in a very respectful way. So that is an intervention that might restore safety, because when you speak about something, and of course you need to practice this, and you know, of course we're not on top of our game all the time, because that's not possible. But you know, if you are feeling open and calm and accepting, you could share your observation, like saying, hey, you know, I noticed that, you know, I just asked this question, but I get the feeling that it might be a little scary to share the answers right away. So are you guys feeling this too? Or do you notice this as well? And, you know, if so, what else could we do to make this more comfortable? Or, you know, you could say anything like this, you know, to address the safety issue. Because the moment you address the issue, you know, even if that's awkward and uncomfortable, in another way, it gives the signal, I've got this, I see you. And you know, we're here to create something positive together. This is not a role play. So we really want to have authentic answers. So if that's not possible right now, let's find another way or another place or another timing. So
and I have asked that question many a times, you know, how can we get input from all levels? And yeah, I've gotten a variety of different responses.
Yeah, and it's different every time, because people
Right.
and groups will surprise you, and that's the beauty of it, of course. Do you see, I have this beautiful blue circle on my screen. Do you have that as well? Oh, that's really interesting. It's some magic. It's a positive change circle, probably, that we're seeing. Well, okay, we're almost done, people. I don't want to take all of your time, but a positive culture depends on you too. So everybody in the room is responsible for a positive culture and can make a difference. So how you interact helps the culture be more positive, and it has nothing to do with your position, and you don't need permission or resources to interact. You might not need a huge change program. You can start small and go viral, but you could also consider using change circles to engage the whole organization. And so my question for you really is, what could you do to help your organization be more positive? So, you know, after seeing this webinar, what could you do right away? So maybe you could ask more possibility-oriented questions, and, you know, start looking for the positive potential, and, you know, ask more questions. And that is something that I advise myself to do, because, you know, I tend to talk a lot, and it's great to ask more questions and assume less. So where are you at? Are there any questions left?
I have a recommendation too, Marcella.
Okay.
You can buy the book.
Yes, people can buy the book, and of course, you know, people, it would be great if you enroll in a Positive Culture Academy. It's online, so you can find more information, and you can register at positive-culture.com. And, you know, it would be great, because we're going to work together and see how you can apply this in your organization. So we're going to take a look at culture, at the interaction patterns, and what you can do. So how can you prepare yourself? How can you organize support for yourself? Because you don't have to do this alone. It's better to do this with supportive colleagues. and then, you know, see through it. Okay.
Thank you, Marcella.
You're welcome. This was really a pleasure. I don't know if we have time for questions, or are there questions left, or is it really time to wrap up?
Marcella, I'm going to leave that up to you. I'm happy to keep the session running for the next minutes, and we can open it up. I'll unmute everyone so that they can participate in a Q&A with you.
Okay.
For everyone else, I have posted Marcella's website and Amazon book reference in the chat window. So if you want to see that, please feel free to look in the chat window for that. Okay, Marcella, I'm going to unmute everyone.
Okay.
Right. Does anyone have a question for Marcella regarding the today's topic?
It's very, oh, go ahead.
This is Ron Newton here. Just nice job covering a lot in a short period of time with examples and applying some feedback. So nice job. I enjoyed your presentation.
Oh, thank you. That's great, because I wondered, you know, if I did too much, if it was too much, and I was going really fast through this. So thank you.
And that's being replicated in the chat room. I don't know if you can see it, Marcella.
No, no, I still, okay.
Many people are saying thank you. It was a wonderful presentation. Our president, Roland Livingston, says it was a wonderful presentation and great information.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Just to let you know, we will be sending out a link shortly so that you can replay the webinar if you'd like. Oh, Deborah has raised her hand, Wang.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I guess because often when I'm participating in these Zoom sessions, there's more tendency for everyone to speak at once than for everyone to stay quiet. So I had the hand raising habit from other presentations.
Thank you. Thank you.
I did have a question that came up in my mind earlier, because earlier in the presentation, there's a little bit of discussion around when you have the fundamental senior leadership in an organization being authoritarian, and you get a participative culture underneath. And I actually recently experienced the opposite, and it confounded me because I'd never seen the opposite before, where the senior leadership of the organization was actually very participative. Sorry, is my mic not working, or?
No, I think that's someone else speaking. Not aware. Hi, if you're not actively talking, can you please put yourself on mute?
There's a lot of Jabba talk right now.
Yeah, so the senior management was aiming quite intentionally for a participative style. You know, they didn't want to block people in, they wanted everyone engaged. But what I noticed in the org was when people would step up to own something or make change or participate, that the kind of middle management layer seemed to move to block them. There was something in the culture where there was a culture of almost holding people in their place, even though the senior leaders were trying to build participative culture. And I'm just wondering if you can speak at all to strategies for that situation.
Yeah, so that's interesting. You know, of course, it would be I would recommend to talk with the middle managers, you know, that you see, you know, when you see that happening, of course, you know, when it happens on the spot, of course, you try to intervene in a very respectful way, like, because you don't want to shame them in public.
Absolutely.
So you would say, okay, well, I'd really like to hear what, you know, this person has to say, and maybe we can come back to this later. And, you know, but then after the session, it would be a good thing to talk with the middle managers to see, hey, I'd like to share an observation when, you know, your team came with some recommendations. I heard you say, and it seemed like, you know, it was a bit awkward for you, or is that true? How did you experience that? Or so have a conversation like this and find out, you know, what they are really afraid of, because often, you know, when people are blocking recommendations from others, you know, it's often based on fear, of course, and, you know, that's really natural, because you might have, you're used to your own position as a middle manager, and it can be very inconvenient to have a participatory style all of a sudden, you know, and if I'm in my comfort zone and I've been ruling top down and I felt comfortable like this, you know, it might be really difficult. So the thing is, you know, to find out what is blocking them and see if you can work with them to you know, to simply practice. How could you do this? How could you still be the leader? How could you still be okay while you allow the others to contribute more?
Thank you.
So for me, it would take a combination of authentic conversations, maybe training and coaching also. If you know, all middle managers have this.
Okay. Thank you. The sound did cut out a little bit, unfortunately, thanks to internet problems, but I did catch most of your answer. Thank you.
Okay.
Marcella, there is another person who has a question, Mary Booth. Mary, you're not muted. Did you want to ask your question?
Sure. I just wanted to know if you can speak to metrics and adoption rates. You know, I find that whenever I'm at a client, everyone wants to understand, you know, how we're going to have our client adopt the change, and yet finding measurements always appear to be difficult. And I didn't know what you thought about that, if you had any ideas on some really good measurements.
You mean a measurement of the change, whether there's any change taking place?
Whether it's on the adoption, on if people are adopting to the change. Every client I've been on my 20 years of practice always wants to know, how am I going to know the attrition? Yep. How am I going to know if they're, you know, really buying into this? How do I know that they're really adopting the change? And so they want to see more tangible metrics these days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, you know, of course, this is people work. So, you know, culture and interaction. So that is, well, it's not always easy to measure that with a tool, but, you know, you can see it right away. So, you know, it's very visible if your team says yes, but does no. So you know, it's very visible if people buy into the change or not. And you know, you can ask people to score a survey. You can create your own surveys, like, you know, in 2 weeks time, in 2 months time, you know,
and that is the common practice for most practitioners of change. However, I'm finding that more and more clients are becoming more and more savvy about change. And sometimes it's just not enough to just say, yeah, I'm going to do a pulse check and I'm going to do a survey, and, you know, we're going to, you know, do some more.
You know, sometimes, okay, there's another thing. I also work with the Organizational Culture Assessment Instrument, the OCAI survey. And, you know, when I do change circles based on the survey, and then we start changing the culture, so then we're also working with interactions and behavior, but also focusing on changing that culture. And what we do is we try to find key performance indicators or things in that they are already measuring that would change if the new culture took hold. So if everybody is doing the change that we agreed on, then, you know, eventually we would see performance go up, or lead time go down, or scrap rates go down. So you try to find, so this is what I do together with the team. I try to find the metrics that are already there in the organization that represent the culture. So eventually that they would improve those numbers.
Okay.
Of course, that's indirect. So you have the direct observation, you have the survey, whether it's an official culture survey or, you know, a one that you developed yourself, or, you know, the team is scoring the others. Like, I can hear my colleagues ask more questions. I can hear my colleagues ask for help or offer help. You know, those are visible signs of a positive culture, for instance. But you can combine that with the official metrics.
Okay, that's a good starting place.
Yeah.
Marcella?
Yeah.
One thing I think is so important is a consultant needs to work with senior leadership to determine what those metrics are, right? Because they're the ones you have to make happy, right?
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to about the positive culture course. Is it delivered live? If so, what time?
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay, so you're asking about the Positive Culture Academy? Because
yes.
I lost the sound. Okay.
Yes. I'm just looking to understand if it's a live delivery and what time of day and what days of the week, so I can figure out if I would be available or not.
Okay. So the video lectures are pre-recorded. So so every week you can watch some videos, and there's assignments, there's partner work, and we'll have a dialogue group where we exchange things. And then once every 4 weeks, there is a live class conference call where, you know, we can exchange energy and ideas. We can exchange what happened, and, you know, ask questions. So, and the conference calls will be recorded as well, because, you know, currently people are from all over the world, so it's impossible to satisfy all time zones.
Okay, and how long is the program?
It's 14 weeks. 14
weeks. The questions, of course, come because I'm on vacation for part of the program, and I'm trying to figure out whether to attend in the future or attend now in spite of being on vacation.
Yeah. Well, you know, of course, how much time it takes, it depends on how much you want to put in.
Absolutely.
So you can zap through it and go faster. And of course, everybody has a different level. So some people want to see all the videos and do everything and answer all the questions, you know, while other people, you know, they already know the subject matter and might go faster. So it could take 1 hour to 2 hours per week. But if you really want to create a personal culture plan and work with your team, it might take more time, because you want to apply everything. You want to practice it with some coworkers first, you know, then apply it in the team, then, you know, discuss it in a dialogue group or discuss it with me. So that might take more time. But then, you know, it works if you work it. So the more you put in, the more you get out of it.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and you can take that anywhere you go. And of course, you know, I'm still, you teach what you want to learn. So I'm still learning. So it's so interesting. You know, I keep practicing this. And then I think, wow, now I've got this. And then, you know, there's a whole new level. And there we go again. So it's great, the human journey, to apply all this and to be aware of what we're doing.
Thank you, everyone, for today, for all of your questions and for participating in today's webinar with Marcella and Kimberly and myself. And I want to thank everyone for their time and their great chats. and information. We'll follow up with some slides and links to the recording, as well as links to Marcella's website on positive culture and her Amazon book link as well. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Marcella.
Thank you all. I really like this a lot. Thanks for your questions, your participation.
Appreciate it.
Great vibe. Bye, everyone.
Bye.